Hello and welcome to Tucman's team development model for the Mark Scott Leadership for Life Award. This is a four-stage process for creating an effective team from a group of people, and it's a process that we all go through whenever we're working in newly formed teams, and it's really useful to understand this and see how it works. It also interacts very heavily with some of the other models we'll do, so we'll illustrate that at the end. But fundamentally, it's about how we create an effective team. So of the four stages, we start with number one, which is to form. We form the team. We assemble the team. We gather a group of people together for a common purpose, but they are just a group of people. They're all nice to each other. They're very wary of each other. It's like, going to a party and you don't know everybody. You go in there and you kind of wander around and you find somebody that maybe looks nice and go and have a wee chat with them and see if that works. Everybody's very nice to each other. It's very comfy, very fluffy, but not very effective as a team. That's the forming stage. So we're bringing people together, but not much more than that. The next stage is Tucman called it the storm stage or the storming stage. So mixing up. It can also be looked at as the truth stage. And it's better to think of it as the truth stage. If we think about storming, we think about people arguing and fighting and fingers coming out on people. I hate you because it's not about that. And very rarely does it actually involve that. But it's about people stopping just being nice to each other and not wanting to offend each other. It's about people tackling the difficult stuff. Because in the storming stage, what we do, in the truth stage, what we do is we start to feed back to each other about how we interact. So we're looking at, how do I interact with this person over here? How do they interact with me? How does that work? Where does it work well? Where does it work poorly? How do our skills interact with each other? So do we have a communication issue? First of all, do I need to tell that person that they need to speak louder because I can't hear them? Do I need to ask this person to not interrupt quite so much because I haven't quite got out what I want to say? How do I do that positively? Well, that's the truth stage rather than storming stage, but that's the kind of feedback that people need to hear. So once that person knows that actually they might not realize it at all, but now they know because you've told them that they interrupt quite a lot, they can change the way that they behave to fit in better with the team. And it takes the edges off, so people find out that they speak too quietly or too fast. They find out that they don't get across their ideas often enough, and they should give more. They find out that they rush ahead and don't take people with them. They find out that they need to speak up more. Those kind of things they find out from people carefully and positively telling them that. So it's all about feeding back to each other. While they're doing that, all the members of that group are starting to become a team, because they're also looking at, oh, actually, I'm quite good at this, but they're really good at that. And then we put the two of these together and we start to be really effective. So maybe I'm really good at starting stuff off, then I get bored and want to go on to the next thing. But this person over here, they're fantastic at finishing stuff. They don't come up with ideas and things, but you give them a job and they'll get on with it and they'll take it right to the end. So if I work with them, I can start things and they can finish them, and therefore we've got the whole thing sorted there. Things like that. I'm not a very confident leader. They are a very confident leader, so I'll get them to coordinate what's going on amongst us. So recognizing each other's strengths, where they fit in, and importantly, how they complement each other is all part of the storming process. And it really importantly, is about informing each other about our impressions of each other and recognizing that in each other. So it says at the bottom there, this stage can be awkward. It can be really awkward. Maybe you've got something really difficult to say to somebody. Maybe they just shout all the time and nobody can get a word in edgeways. The team is not going to be able to function properly or as effectively as it could do if they continue that within the team. So at some stage, they need to be informed of that in a positive way. And that stage is this stage. It's the storm stage. Can you sit down for a second? There's something that's really important I need to tell you. And when I've told you this, if you can take it on board, it's going to transform everything in our team. This is really important. If these kind of conversations are really difficult, there is a module, there you'll find a video on difficult conversations and avoiding conflict. If that concerns you, why not watch that video as well later on. However, storming, being honest with each other. I think you're fabulous, and this is how we complement each other. Let's move forward. It's wonderful. That leads us nicely into stage 3, which is norming. So now in our 2s and 3s within that group, we understand how we interact well with each other, and we've had some feedback, and we know we've been able to improve on the way that we interact with each other because we know how we affect other people. As a whole team, that starts to happen because I'm interacting with you, you're interacting with somebody else, they're interacting with somebody else, and that then feeds around the rest of the team, and individuals start to recognize their roles within the team. It's based on honesty, and it's based on truth. You are a much better leader of the team. I'll support you in this task that we're doing. But this person over here is a really good ideas person, and I'll get on and do the stuff that they come up with ideas. That kind of recognizing your place. So norming is normalizing. It becomes, this is my normal place to be the ideas person in the team. So people start to find their place or their role within the team. And this all comes about by the greater understanding which comes from that feedback in the storming phase. So that's stage 3. And then the final for us, and Tucman does have a 5th stage, but we don't deal with that. The final stage for us, stage 4, is about performing. So taking that group of people who now understand where their roles are within the team, who understand how they work most effectively with the other members of the team and how they interact, they then start operating. They start taking on the task and working and using those roles. And that's when the team starts to perform. So they've raised their ability and attainment because the power of the team is greater than that of the individuals within it, and it starts to really perform. And it gets better. So it's practice. We continue with the feedback, and it gets better and better and better. We have experience of each other's strengths. We understand them more and more as we work together, and we get better and better, and we perform. And that's really, really important that that's what we're aiming for. So to lay this down, and we've only got 3 more slides left to go now. Looking at that in the big picture, so taking a step back. So what we're looking at is the process of bringing together, storming and being honest and open and feeding back and truthful and delivering all of the information to each other in that storming phase. We then use that information about each other and how we interact and how we complement each other to then normalize everybody so that everyone has their place in the team, and then the team can go on to perform. And that's what Tucman's team development process is all about, is recognizing those stages. And so there is a time when it's really important to give feedback, and it's pretty early on to get that storming done so that we can move on to norming. What we're going to look at next is what can quite often happen when people try to inadvertently avoid the storming process. So we form a group of people. They want to be nice to each other. They think that being nice to each other is the really important thing, and they don't go through a storming phase. People irritate each other, but they don't want to say something to somebody else. People recognize strengths in each other, but they're not comfortable telling them. People aren't feeding back to each other. They're just being nice and fluffy, and they love each other, and it's wonderful. Okay? But without that storming, without that being honest, you are a fantastic leader, but you're too autocratic. And if you eased back a little bit and allowed us in to contribute, we would be much better. That kind of difficult conversation, if you avoid those and you don't go through the storming process, you go straight past it. But you don't normalize, because you're normalizing on very little information. People end up in roles that they don't really want, but they don't want to tell people they don't want it, because that would upset the apple cart. So we end up as an unnormalized group, a group of people that are doing tasks that they maybe don't interact well with. Maybe they have individuals not doing the best role, and they struggle because they're not properly normed, because they haven't stormed, and then they underperform. They cannot put the best person in the best place in the job because nobody's told or admitted to themselves or to each other who the best person for that role is. Nobody's given them real feedback on how to be even better than that. They're not supported by people who appreciate them fully, who gel with them really well in that role, because they don't know that that's what they do, because they didn't go through the storming process. So it's really, really important that when you join a new team, you do go through that process. You are prepared to give people feedback on how they work well and don't work well with you, what roles they fulfill well, what roles they don't fulfill well, what tasks they're good at, what tasks they're not good at. Because if you don't do that, there's no storming, there is no norming, and you only go through to underperform. Okay, and when we're talking about underperforming, we're potentially, as a group, delivering less than an individual from that group could deliver themselves, because you're so at odds with each other. So underperforming is really, really serious. And don't forget, if we think about this in a practical sense, this all takes time, and doing a project takes time. And by missing out the storming phase, that time gets used anyway. It's a chunk of your life that goes. But if we underperform, we use that same chunk of our life to achieve something small and withered, as we would do if we had not avoided the storming, gone through that, had those conversations, no matter how awkward they were. We'd gone to perform, and actually in the same period of time we could have achieved something that was bright and shiny and wonderful that we can feel proud of. So in teams, we don't let ourselves down by going through that storming process. So if you are in a team and people are starting to irritate each other and starting to argue, a lot of new teams think, oh, this is terrible, we're not doing very well, we're a bad team. And the point that Tucman's making is you might be able to change your language to help each other listen to the feedback that we're getting. But fundamentally, that grinding against each other, that annoyance, those discussions about what people do that really irritate each other, that feeding back is really, really important. So if you are in a team where people annoy you, find a way of telling them, because that's the storming phase and you need to go through it. Otherwise, you'll underperform. So it'd be wrong to finish with, don't do this. So we finish on this slide here with a reminder again of the form, storm, norm, and perform process. And as I said before, a little earlier on, these are all underpinned with elements of the training that you're getting as part of the Mark Scott Leadership for Life Award. So in storming, we use Johari. Johari is all about feedback, and the storming phase is all about feedback. We can also use our understanding of Maslow to gauge our reactions to situations and other people, and their reactions to us as well. And that might help us inform us of why people are behaving the way they are, and it might help us understand and accept the way that they're behaving, even if it's something that's contrary to what we would want ideally. We also have things like personal posters, so it's where we share about each other. But fundamentally, both of those and others feed into Johari, which is about feedback. In norming and understanding our roles within a team, we use things like Adair and Belbin, where we're looking at how do I interact with that person, how do these two people interact effectively with each other, and settling down into people having their roles and accepted roles within the team, so that the team becomes normalized and everybody understands their role in it. And then we move on to performing. And we introduce the support and challenge model around about performance. Is where people can do their normalized jobs and they're comfortable that they are supported by the people around them, because everybody is comfortable in their place within the team. They can be encouraged and supported to challenge themselves within the team, and that's where people grow as well. So not only do we deliver really well in the project work that we do, but we also grow as individuals. And that feeds straight back to Adair, where we were in normalizing. So it's all interlinked. But fundamentally, the big thing that Tucman says is you have to go through that storming phase, that feedback, that honest, truthful stage where we have that feedback. Otherwise, the rest of it just doesn't happen. Thanks very much, everybody, and good luck. Goodbye.